The Prime Minister says Australian standards will mean that AI can retain its social licence, though some question whether it's a good economic deal in the first place. To debate that very issue, I want to bring in a panel of two economists on either side of that ledger. Nataliya Ilyushina is an economist from Deakin University who believes AI is a big economic opportunity. Nicki Hutley is an economist who recently wrote for The Guardian about her concerns about these data centres, and I want to welcome both of them. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's talk about these data centres. Big pipeline of demand to build them in Australia. First to you, Nicki Hutley, you're concerned about them. Does the government's new regulations that look like they will be in the Parliament at the start of next year appease some of that concern?
Well, look, it's a good step in the right direction, because obviously my key concerns are around implications, where already our Climate Minister has committed us to trying to increase our electrification to reduce emissions across the broader economy. So the more strain we put on our grid, the more problems it's going to bring. So if we're having additional investment in renewable energy that's going to power these things, that goes a long way to helping. It doesn't reduce all of the issues, though, of course, because, triple the use of energy and water over the next 5 to 6 years alone in Australia. Never mind what it is that these data centres are actually underpinning. And I guess that's a fundamental issue that I have, is that we are hurtling into the AI race. No one wants to miss out, but we haven't sat down and looked at all the costs and benefits in a way that we would with any other form of infrastructure.
Nataliya, what's your view? Are data centres good for the country?
We did miss on the top of the innovation race already, so it's our last chance to catch this opportunity. Yes, we are becoming an AI real estate technically, so what's the data center is, it's technically a warehouse that we're offering to house in our country. And inevitably, we have to provide resources for that if we want it to give us any economic benefits. So it's on us to make sure that we provide reliable electricity supply, and partially the transition to green energy stands in a way to have this successfully implemented. Having said that, again, if we impose too many restrictions on those foreign companies, Anthropic can really shop around. It can shop around in different countries. And Elon Musk suggesting to put data centers in open space where sun always shines. So we're competing with not just the earth, with this open space as well.
OK, you just said green energy stands in its way. What do you mean by that?
The transition to green energy really undermines our provision of reliable energy grid, because there's been consistent disinvestment in coal and gas sourced electricity. And because there is less and less supply and demand on that source of electricity, it's obviously less and less investment and maintenance. So we have not really transitioned to green energy. So we haven't provided the alternative, and we're already pulling rug from under our feet on that side. So this creates a real competitive disadvantage now for us to embrace the last chance to embark on AI race.
OK, I'll give you a right of reply on that, Nicki Hutley. You've heard the critique there from Nataliya.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm sorry, but that's not correct. In terms of the amount of renewable energy we have coming into the system, we are running roughly 50% on renewables already. The investment in battery storage is absolutely phenomenal. The government's capacity investment scheme is ensuring that that is coming out. And if there's one thing that is looking in the climate space that it is on track, it is in fact the rollout of renewables, particularly in Australia, where at times over the last year or so, we've had days where we're running well over 50% on renewables. In South Australia, it's been over 100%. So I think that is just a furphy. This is the way the world is going to go. It is lower cost. Our coal is going out the back door, thank goodness. And we are, having a better system in the end that will be cheaper electricity. We've already seen the next round of offers. Electricity prices have come down for the year ahead because of so much cheaper renewables. So I think it's not about the supply and demand that is in our normal grid. It's about the speed at which we're trying to get AI and data centres up and running without due consideration. We have never done this for anything else. And I just don't understand this. We've got to rush without actually thinking about what the consequences are. It just seems so ill-considered.
Nataliya, you think the government's approach to AI has created uncertainty among business, but business actually has welcomed it. They broadly have said, obviously devil in the detail always, but broadly having kind of rules around this at a national level to deal with the states and the territories as well. Isn't that a good thing, that everyone knows what the rules are?
Correct, and that's an indication that this regulation is long overdue. And same to Nicki's point, why is it a race? Because we're already behind, and this is why it's a race. The regulation, the development of regulation started in 2023 with Ed Husik's AI regulation inquiry, and that ended up in nothing. Then there was a mandatory guardrails proposed that were mainly hindering the businesses and disproportionately placing responsibility for anything that can possibly go wrong with AI in the production process, especially disproportionately on small businesses. And now we're picking it up again, and what Albanese delivered, there was no specific legislation. He didn't even specify the areas that we are aiming to legislate. And that in itself creates an uncertainty whether there will be legislation or we will let it run freely like it is in the United States. And naturally, the smaller business you are, the more you're worried about the legal costs, because they are usually one of the leading causes of bankruptcies in small, medium businesses. So naturally, you will be withholding investment in AI if you don't know what's going to happen regulation-wise. And of course, businesses are welcoming it because it's long overdue and they cannot wait to know what they can and cannot do.
So, Nicki, now that we are going to have some broad parameters around what they can and can't do, what's your critique of the rules themselves that have been articulated so far by the Prime Minister?
Well, I mean, as you say, the devil is in the detail, and, you know, we don't know ultimately what the end use of a lot of these centres are. We don't know about preservation around privacy. You know, we're creating these tools that we know lots of good things will come from AI. There's no question about it. It already is presenting growth, you know, productivity, better outcomes in health. You know, there's no denying that. But there are also a whole load of unintended consequences. And the thing that concerns me is that we just haven't examined that thoroughly enough. Even some of the big tech bros in the US are worried about that. So it's great that we are saying, yes, you have to bring along your own green energy. That is obviously a fundamental step that, I was looking for. But in terms of, you know, the broader usage, I think it's a bit like social media. You know, we might get 10 years down the track and suddenly go, oh gosh, this is, you know, harming our children. Now we need to reverse it. This is so much bigger across so many different spectrums than social media. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm just saying, could we please slow down? I get Nataliya's point about, you know, we're racing against the US and China, but I'm just saying, is that actually a really good idea? Australia's always been a technology taker, not maker, and I don't see that, you know, this is going to change anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay, in terms of being a technology maker, should we be a maker, Nataliya? Should there be investment in sovereign capability?
Absolutely. The sovereign capability investment, or better say lack of thereof, is currently the biggest threat and bigger harm, potential harm, than all other things such as the biases, the deepfakes. What we're talking about is having our own model trained in Australia, and also data sovereignty is very important, because what's going to happen with things like rollout of digital ID? Are digital IDs data going to be now stored overseas because we don't have our own data capability? That's a lot bigger threat for national security and development of our own digital economy and digital infrastructure than under-researched threats such as biases in AI, which we still haven't proven that they exist.
If I could just give you the final word, Nicki Hutley, the government talks a lot about sovereignty, but there wasn't an announcement about investment in building our own models. Do you think that would be wise?
I think it would be wise, and there certainly is there are requirements already. There have been for data centres for years now for certain government information to be housed in Australia. That has always been, or for a long time has been the case. I just think that the risks are bigger. For example, it's not about data bias. I mean, that is an issue as well, but it's things like APRA has just written to all the banks saying, we're really worried about the threat of AI on cyber risk and your financial security. This is a financial system stability risk, and one of the suggestions is, well, use AI tools to combat the risk of AI. So I think we're in a pretty weird space at the moment, and it just hasn't been thought through well enough for us to be hurtling at this speed.
Thank you to both of you. It's been an interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Nataliya Ilyushina, economist from Deakin University, and economist Nicki Hutley discussing the government's planned standards for artificial intelligence.